Well, there's been no let-up in exchange of hostilities between the US and Israel on the one side and Iran on the other, 5 days after the ongoing war started, in which is escalated by several notches following Monday's killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Well, Arise special correspondent James Blue joins us now to discuss the latest developments in US-Israel invasion of Iran. James, it's great to have you with us. Please fill us in on the latest regarding this.
Cynthia, glad to be here. Thank you for having me. For me, the most important thing that's happening right now is the way that Iran is reaching out directly to the CIA to speak about terms that could be used to end the conflict. And, as I was speaking yesterday, Iran is very, very expert in trying to stall, delay, have meetings, talk. But what's really very interesting is that Iran is actively seeking an off-ramp, actively speaking to the Trump administration, actively talking to the security and intelligence sources within the United States, and basically saying that they are willing to find a way off, and that they would, uphold a ceasefire agreement, that they are really willing to cede to some of the American demands. And what this really points to is that for the Iranians who are in charge, what they really want more than anything is self-preservation. They want to stay alive, they want to stay in control, and they want to say things to determine the future of the country. And so I just think it's very interesting that we do have reports, very credible reports, that Iran's leadership is reaching out, actively trying to find a way out through the US CIA. So on this fifth day, for me, that stands out.
All right, James, as a fallout of the conflict, we need to delve on some of these issues. Do you think this is an afterthought to ask Americans in 14 states in the region to leave on account of Iran hitting US sites? Is this indicative of the fact that we might have a longer invasion, or rather conflict on our hands, as it were?
I think the evacuation of Americans and American interests in the 14 states around Iran it's just very, very clear. Iran is using any and all tactics it can to strike against the United States. And since there are U.S. interests in these countries, and Iran has these ballistic weapons and missiles that they can use, they, of course, are trying to use them. And so I think it's just natural to try to move people into safety away from the region. The real problem, as you know, is that flights are not taking off. And so it's very difficult to get people out of the region. Embassies are closing, services are being reduced, and it's increasingly going to be very difficult to kind of get, the help that people need if they stay. And so this is just a cautionary exercise, trying to make sure that where it is possible, Americans who are in the region can get out and can stay safe. And I don't think it is in any way an indicator of how long they think it might last. It is definitely an indicator that for Iran, striking these side states is really all it can do. And that's what they're doing.
Indeed, James, I think it's really important what you mentioned about the Iranians reaching out to the CIA, looking to negotiate. Hopefully, this will not be a stalling tactic, like you pointed out yesterday. But when it comes to any reports of Russian or Chinese involvement, do you have any evidence, or have you heard about anything in terms of material support, intelligence sharing, possibly an intervention for these powers to enter the conflict, whether directly or indirectly?
Very good question, Cynthia. Russia and China are both allies of Iran, but to my knowledge, they have not gotten involved and they have not used their seats on the UN Security Council to sort of do anything to prevent US action. I do think it's very important to recognize that Iran is very isolated, and it's that isolation that has led them to reach out to try to find an off ramp with U.S. intelligence sources. And so I do believe that the alliance and the affinity between Iran, China, and Russia continues. But at this point, neither of those countries seem to be coming to the assistance to keep Iran in the fight and to sort of in that way upset the Americans. I think they're both staying clear, seemingly.
All right, James. Israel recently declared all future Iranian leaders as targets to assassinate. And now, when you hear rhetorics like that, what's the implication for any future diplomatic solution to this conflict?
Well, basically what Israel is trying to do is to get Iran to declare that it will not in any way pursue any kind of nuclear activity. This is not just bombs, it's all nuclear activity. And so what they're doing is just basically putting all potential and future leaders on notice. Should you take the role, you will definitely become a target. It's certainly not very helpful, and I know the Americans are trying to get Israel to sort of back down. But, in a way, Israel has been at the forefront, and their need and desire to kind of really to diminish Israel and to diminish Iran, and specifically diminish Iran's capability militarily and with nuclear material. That is their overarching goal, and that's what they're trying to do.
James, are you aware of any credible scenarios of what might play out in the next 48 to 72 hours?
I'm not exactly sure where things are going to go. My sense is that what is likely to happen is that, and this is just based on Secretary Marco Rubio saying that the more intense bombing has not happened yet. And so I think if there isn't some sense that Iran is coming to heel, that there is going to be some settlement, some way of sort of an off-ramp, that you are going to see increased bombing. My sense is that that increased bombing is likely to, further enrage Iran and to have them try to reach American proxies in other countries in the region. And I think that has the potential for further escalation. So far, things have been sort of kept tight, but I think each day that goes on, that's harder and harder to do. But we'll just have to see. And I'm really, I am very, I guess, surprised at the way in which the Americans are doing this with the Israelis. They're doing it without ground troops. They're doing it solely on air power. But there is a limit to air power, and sort of as things continue to move, and when there is a need for an additional Iranian government, we'll just sort of see how effective air power is at that point. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Indeed, we'll have to wait and see. And of course, recent opinion polls in the US indicates that quite a number of people might not be in support of this current conflict with Iran. But Spain's President Pedro Sanchez is also hitting back at President Trump to sever trade on account of saying no to war. Is President Sanchez echoing the thoughts of most European leaders, you think, on this U.S.-Israeli conflict with Iran?
I'm sorry, the question is how does what?
Yeah, talking about the spat between Spain's President Sanchez and, of course, President Trump to sever trade on account of saying no to this war and not using Spanish bases, as it were. So, do you think the Spanish president is echoing the thoughts of European leaders on President Trump's campaign with Israel on Iran?
Well, look, I think every country has to decide where they want to be on this. And if your country does not want to, participate in this bombing, so be it. It's particularly understandable. I think the real challenge is you have a U.S. president who is more than willing to sort of string people up and more than willing for people to pay the consequences of not wanting to participate. And I do think it is just sort of the way Donald Trump works, that's just the way he operates. And so for whatever reason, and they can be legitimate reasons why Spain and Canada and other countries may decide that they don't want to do this. And of course, as a result, President Trump is going to do what he's known for, which is really, bully and try to get people to accept the way that he wants to go. And that's just particularly unfair and very, very like kids in a schoolyard.
Indeed. I would have loved to hear a comment about the draft baron situation, but we'll leave it there for now. All right, special correspondent James Blue, thank you so much for joining us here on Newsday.